Hey, Annabelle. Hoo-yah. Okay, just checking a couple things. Check, check, check. Okay, I think that's all working. No one's on here watching yet anyways. But for those who may be watching in retrospect, so I have a slight problem, which is my guest apparently punched the wrong address into his GPS. So it may take him a little while to get here, maybe up to a half an hour. So that's okay. If we run late, no big deal. I'll be texting people that maybe thought about tuning in. There are literally dozens of people that sometimes watch this, so I hate to keep people up. I know that it's important to be punctual, but you have to. For those of you that have lived in this area of the world, you have to understand sometimes the snow does not cooperate. So, yeah, he's going to be a little late getting here. For those of you just tuning in, so it might be like a half an hour. So I'll talk a little before then, although I was not prepared, but that's okay. I don't know if you can see. Maybe I could have a debate guest right here. My dog Annabelle. I went and bought her one of these, like, she's not a big dog, so we went and bought her one of these rope toys, and they'll say things on them like, for tough chewers, for experienced chewers. So we got her this one. She really likes rope, so we got her this one. It had like a tire on it. So I bought it for her the other day, and it was supposed to be for expert chewers. And she literally had ripped it apart within 5 minutes, and I'm still cleaning rubber pieces up all over the ground, so maybe we could have a discussion on that, Annabelle, for the people watching. What do you think? Huh? No. Also, my apartment's very small, so I'm trying to logistically have it set up. I hope that this works. I might shut off the live stream for just a couple minutes when Aaron gets here, because he probably doesn't want to be recorded as soon as he walks in or anything like that. So, yeah. 1 second. So I guess I could talk a little about what I intend to accomplish with this live stream. The idea behind my channel was, there was basically two main ideas behind it. The first was, I feel, coming from rural Pennsylvania, I feel like there's a lot of people that I know that that aren't interested in media or politics, and they don't have access to it. They don't have the free time. Like, if you're working at PennDOT today, or you're working on, like, my brother-in-law, he's working on oil lines. If you're a farmer, if you're a carpenter, you're working outside, you don't have a lot of time, like someone like me that's a little soft around the midsection that doesn't have those kind of jobs, to be kind of looking into the news. And for those of you that maybe know, so I feel like I'm in a unique position because I grew up in this rural area, and I basically sucked at all the stuff that all my friends did. Like, they were great with their hands, great hunters. I enjoy hunting, but I'm one of the worst hunters you'll ever see. I can't do mechanical stuff to save my life. The other day I tried to replace a toilet seat for 3 hours. It took my wife like 10 minutes when she got home. So yeah, I'm just not good at that type of stuff. But I was better at like kind of scholastic type stuff and speaking. And so when I went off to the university, I ended up joining debate, which I really enjoyed. And I did pretty good at it. But you get to meet a whole new group of people. And that group of people doesn't necessarily connect a lot with the group of people that I grew up with. And it's not that one group's inherently better than the other. It's nothing like that. Both have strengths and weaknesses. Everyone's an individual. I mean, there are people that from this area that are great intellectual people that suck with their hands, even more so than me. Not that I'm a great intellectual person, but you see what I'm saying. And there are people from that crowd that I met in debate that maybe grew up in the inner city, went to like an Ivy League school, that would be fantastic hunters, could live on the outdoors on a farm or work on their own car. So obviously, I'm just talking in generalizations, but when it comes to individuals, everyone could be different. But I thought that I was in a unique position in that, I kind of learned a lot from both of those areas. And so I could maybe bridge the gap a little and just show that people aren't as different as it seems. And so I wanted to have a channel that showed, one, to those people that don't normally consume media, like just like breaking it down for maybe a story so you can at least get my perspective on it and get a starting off point without having to watch the nightly news every night. But the other thing, and I think that's more important, is everything's so divided now. Like, it's like having a disagreement or a debate with someone or an argument is automatically considered somehow like a bad thing. I love arguing. I love debating. And I mean, I know people that hate talking about politics and won't talk about politics. We're having a Friendsgiving thing here this weekend, which my buddy Aaron, that's why he's up. He'll be going to that with me. We'll probably, we'll have these crazy debates where it's like, okay, NHL, go through each player number, like number 1, jersey number 1. Who is the best player with jersey number 1 ever? And then we'll just have these debates. I think it's fantastic. I love it. But particularly in the realm of philosophy, psychology, politics, and things like that, it's important that we have discussions and arguments and debates. When people talk about strength and diversity, that to me is what the strength and diversity is. Your religion, your gender, your sexual preference, the geographic area you live in or were born in, like all of that stuff is important in diversity in the sense that there's a good chance that that leads to you having different opinions than someone that has a different background in those areas. But it's those different opinions that matter. And it's just natural when you have different opinions that you're going to have debates and arguments and things like that. The important thing to realize is it's okay to have these arguments and debates with people and still like them. In fact, I tend to think that, I guess this would be a generalization, I seem to be have closer friendships with people that vastly disagree with me on a lot of these things than the people that do agree with me. Whether it be they vastly disagree because they're like, Rob, shut up, no one wants to talk about politics, or they vastly disagree in the sense it's like, oh, Rob, you're right wing, you're so stupid, left wing's the way to go. Or they disagree in the sense that all parties are the exact same, so shut up, it's not worth talking. Regardless, it seems to be better discussions and have better friendships with people like that. I think it's great to disagree with people and have debates. So I'm really happy to get someone like Aaron on here. Aaron will talk more about his background when he gets on here, but I think he would, I don't want to talk too much about him when he can speak for himself, but I think he would agree, it's safe to say that we disagree on a lot of political issues. We probably come from two different areas, two different ends. I would say that I don't know if it's fair to say he's left-wing. I would say he would consider himself more left-wing, and I'm definitely more right-wing. He hates Trump. I'm someone who supports Trump, though there's plenty of stuff to complain about Trump, which I'm sure we'll both get into. So it's good to have discussions like this. Plus, seeing as how we're going and spending a weekend together, my feeling is that if we end up having these arguments here on YouTube live in front of everyone, then when we get to the bar or get to my friend's house, we won't have to have these arguments. We could talk about important stuff like hockey. So we might talk about a little hockey here as well. If it seems, I don't know what will happen. Like oftentimes me and Aaron and other friends will start talking about politics and voices will raise and things like that. But I assure you, we'll still be friends at the end of it. And I'm just going to try to keep it civil. But just because you raise your voice doesn't mean that anything terrible is happening. But I assure you that we've probably had far more heated debates over the Flyers versus the Penguins or the Eagles versus the Steelers than we'll have anything politically that we might discuss today. So one of the things and again, for those of you that might not have got, Aaron apparently was a little late because of the snow and then screwed up with his GPS, so he thinks he's about a half hour away. So again, I might shut the live stream down for like 3 minutes when he gets here just so I can go downstairs and meet him because he's never been to my place, and then come in when we get situated and then start. But one of the things that's difficult is he's at a disadvantage in that he has no idea. This was kind of short notice. We just knew he was coming up today and we were going to hang out. But he's like, sure, I'll do a video. So I'm not trying to spring like any crazy topics on him like, oh, what do you think of the nominations that Trump just announced today? I'm not trying to spring anything crazy like that. So it'll be more broader topics. Like we'll talk about Trump in general. I know something that's very important to him is climate change, which I know from previous discussions we have a lot of disagreements on. And things like that. Maybe like in general socialism, where he thinks the state of the economy is, things like that. So it'll be more broad range topics, but he's welcome to bring up anything he wants. But it's difficult because you're not trying to do a gotcha thing or anything like that. The purpose of this isn't to show that one of us, well, at least for me, I have no idea what his purpose is. It isn't to show like, I got him with some crazy question. I'm not trying to win a debate as much as have a conversation and hopefully show that conversation, hopefully people watching can learn something or at least think that we're both morons or something like that. So some of the things that I guess I could talk about before he gets here. So I did a video this week that I put on Facebook that I thought was maybe the most important video I've done. I don't know if it's true. Maybe I was just feeling a little grandiose that evening or not, but I guess I'll talk about the subject of it. And that is, the reaction that people had, particularly in the media or websites I'm on, like Above Top Secret, to and just other people in general I've talked to that kind of dislike Trump, or not even dislike, but that are interested in the Mueller investigation and think that it will go against Trump. The reaction to the documents that were released about Flynn on Monday or Tuesday, kind of showed to me that deep down, almost everyone knows that the investigation into Hillary was a sham. So let me talk about what I mean. Flynn, the document said he pled guilty, and Mueller basically comes out and says, I'm recommending no criminal charges. I'm sorry, that's not what he said. He's recommending no jail time, despite the fact that Flynn pled guilty. What Flynn pled guilty to was lying to the FBI. Mueller's like, I'm not going to recommend jail time because he was so cooperative. And he sat down with over 19 interviews with us, and his testimony's involved in 3 separate investigations. One's this Russia investigation, the second is a secondary investigation, and the third is something that was almost completely redacted, so we have no idea what it is. And people's reaction to this was actually quite reasonable. What the reaction was, that probably shows that there are people up the line above Flynn, or at least either people above Flynn that he testified to help with crimes perhaps they committed, or if not above Flynn, maybe a more serious crime that someone on Flynn's level or lower committed. That's what you do. I think the Mueller investigation is a witch hunt, and I think that the proof of that is that he's going after Trump people for things that he left Hillary people go for. For example, Manafort not filing as a foreign lobbyist, he goes after, but we know that the FBI allowed the Podesta group, which was working with Manafort in the very indictment that Mueller said as failing to register as a foreign lobbyist, they didn't get charged. Instead, they were allowed to retroactively file paperwork. And it seems as if Mueller's looking at Russians that are connected to Trump, but isn't looking at Russians some of the exact same Russians, and their connection to the DNC or to Hillary campaigns. And if his mandate was to investigate Russia, which is what I thought it was to further continue the FBI investigation into Russian meddling, and on top of that, see if Trump's team had any connections to them for collusion, or there was any obstruction of justice. Well, part of getting to the bottom of Russia would be investigating all sides' connections to Russia. It doesn't do any good if we just say, oh yeah, the Russians that we're talking to this side are bad, but sometimes those very same Russians talking to the other side, that's fine, we're not going to charge that, we'll allow that. That's not going to solve anything in the future or solve any meddling. So that's why I think it's a witch hunt. But set all that aside for a minute. The actual strategy, the generic strategy that Mueller's employing is one that makes sense, which is you go after lower level people with crimes that you could prove, and you say, look, here's a crime we could prove, in this case, Flynn. We think you lied to the FBI. Now, there's a question of, you hear all kinds of accusations that the FBI's 302s were doctored. Originally, the FBI agents didn't think that Flynn lied. So there are questions, all that. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, he says to Flynn, look, we're going to take you down for lying to the FBI, and you'll either be found guilty and possibly spend up to 5 years in jail, or even if you're found innocent, you're going to go bankrupt trying to defend yourself from these charges. So here's your choice. We're either going to pursue these charges of you lying to the FBI, or you could cooperate with us and sit down and do all these interviews with us and possibly go after people above you that were in the Trump campaign, perhaps even Trump himself. People's reaction shows that they know that that's an effective strategy. Yes, Flynn said, okay, I'll cooperate, and he's had 19 interviews, and he's involved in other possible crimes that came. That shows that they know that, in general, that's an effective strategy. Now, let's look at how the FBI handled the Hillary investigation. Instead of doing that, what they did instead was offer immunity to everyone right out of the gate, and then say, oh, okay, do you have anything to say about this server or Hillary or anything like that? Now, do you really think that that's the best way to investigate crimes and get to the bottom of things? Of course not. Imagine if Mueller in his investigation was like, okay, we have all these people that seem shady, like Manafort, Flynn, Papadopoulos. What I'm going to do is give them all immunity and then set them down and say, okay, now that you have immunity, have anything you'd like to say about other crimes that other people may have committed? What incentive do they have? The incentive that you would have to assume, whether it be people involved in Hillary's campaign or people involved in Trump's campaign, that you're not going to turn on people involved in your own campaign unless there's a negative consequence to not doing so. In other words, there's only 2 reasons you would turn. That there's some benefit to you for turning, or there's some consequence to you for not turning. So in the case of Flynn and Flynn, let's just say, his consequence would be if he didn't turn, he could have possibly faced jail time in this court hearing. He didn't want to do that, so then maybe he had incentive to turn and give information. Had he just been given immunity, he's not going to come out and say, oh, here's a bunch of crimes that Trump committed. Of course not. For two reasons. One, there could have been no crimes, right? But second, even if there were crimes, he's not going to turn on his friend that he was involved with. Now, you might say, well, a just man would, and I agree. That is true. But the fact that Flynn didn't, before any Mueller investigation, come out and say, oh, by the way, here were crimes that I knew about that people in the Trump campaign committed, shows that either there were no crimes or that Flynn isn't the type of guy that's just going to rat out his friends and people connected to him just for the sake of it. So, the only way you're going to get to the bottom of things is to see if he committed some crime, charge him with that, and then threaten him, let him know if he cooperates, then you'll reduce the penalty for that crime. In the Hillary investigation, instead, what we see is he just offers immunity to and this is under James Comey, right? The FBI just offers immunity to everyone, and then they're shocked to find out that no crimes are processed. Now, I've had people talk to me, and they say things like, so I'll address some of the criticisms that I've had with my point of view here. The first is, well, these are two separate crimes. Hillary's investigation and Trump's investigation were two separate things, and therefore that shows that it's not comparing apples to apples. I disagree. The first is they're both similar in the sense that they're both candidates for presidency. That's number one, which means that they should be held to the utmost highest threshold, and it should be the same. When you're talking about two political parties, at the very least, our investigative agencies should have a high threshold for making sure that things are on the up and up there. They should in all cases. All law enforcement should. But at the very least, in this sense, they should. And they should be doing things in the exact same fashion so as not to show favoritism. Remember, the FBI, people like Comey and other people involved in the intelligence agencies have continually talked about, and this was in the IG report, they talked about this a lot, the importance of not just not being biased, but also of not having the appearance of bias. So the FBI knows that. The intelligence agencies know that. In fact, Comey, what his claim is, what he struggled with when he came out originally and was like, well, here's a bunch of stuff Hillary did bad, but I'm not going to charge her. His entire rationale or logic for that was, look, because it was such a thing, we're talking about a presidential election, and I didn't want to give off vibes that I was influencing one way or another. Yeah, that's true that you wouldn't want to do that. So why would you then have the FBI in one hand go after people, give everyone immunity, be as soft as possible, and then in the other hand be as strong as possible to the other side? Now, another thing to keep in mind with this is there's also shown, even in the IG report, it showed this extreme bias from people involved in the FBI towards Hillary and away from Trump. Remember, lead investigators like Peter Strzok could smell Trump supporters at Walmart, which I'm working on. I'm switching away from Axe and going to Dove Men Care, so hopefully he won't be able to smell me the next time he sees me in Walmart. Or he needed an insurance policy against Trump, or he didn't understand why Hillary wouldn't win 1,000,000 to 1 against Trump. When we see all of those claims, that's examples of bias. Clearly, all the leaders of the intel community, such as Comey, Brennan, Clapper, hated Trump. We can see that by them being pundits on the mainstream media, attacking Trump. We know that because Comey leaked information to try to get a special counsel investigation of Trump. So we know none of them like Trump. So there was clear bias at these agencies against Trump and for Clinton. But we're told, well, it doesn't matter. What matters is, did they act on that bias? Well, if we know there was bias, and we know that it just so happened the side they were biased for, they went after, gave in the softest way possible, gave everyone immunity, and then the side they were biased against, they went after in the hardest way possible, charging them with crimes, whether it be them or Mueller, but charging them with crimes that are committed all the time in Washington but are never charged, such as failing to register as a foreign lobbyist, lying to the FBI, lying to Congress. In fact, we know, for example, that Comey, Brennan, and Clapper have all three lied to Congress. So it's rich watching, I saw Brennan, he gave an op-ed, I think, in the Washington Post or something after Cohen here recently pled guilty to lying to Congress, and he was like, oh, this just proves the corruption. This proves how corrupt. Yeah, Brennan at least twice lied to Congress. He lied to Congress back in 2016 when he said that the Steele dossier had no influence whatsoever in any of the intelligence write-ups of the Trump-Russia investigation. We know that's not true. And he lied previous to that, I think in 2013 or 14, where his CIA was actually spying on senators, particularly Democratic senators, and he lied to Congress and said that that wasn't the case. Now, what's funny is you could go back and look at all kinds of articles from left-leaning sources such as The Guardian, The Telegraph, other sources from back then. I looked this up from, I think it was 2014 when Brennan did this. Again, his CIA was spying on particularly Democrats in the Senate that they had problems with. So you can go back and look at these these news articles, and they're all like, Brennan should step down because this is really unethical and shady, which I agree, that's true. But they fail to say, oh, and he should be prosecuted for the crime that is lying to Congress. They never mentioned that. No one suggested charging him. Now the same people that never suggest that are like, yes, Cohen lied to Congress. Absolutely, that's a crime. Again, another double standard. That's just ridiculous. So anyways, my point is, it's clear that the bias did have influence, that the FBI went after one side, went after the Trump side as hard as they could, and went after the Hillary side by giving everyone immunity. The second reason that people say, again, it's with this idea that there are different crimes. Maybe the crimes that were being sought at the end were different. In other words, the idea is theoretically the crime involving Trump is they're trying to find the possible crime of Trump working directly with Putin to steal an election, whereas with Hillary, they're trying to find the crime of Hillary having knowingly holding information back because she had a private server and she didn't want to be responsible for Freedom of Information Act requests being given access to our information. Which, by the way, is most likely why Hillary had the private server. Because if it had been a server where it was supposed to be, then us and the public would have access through Freedom of Information Acts to get the documents that she had after she left her position. She didn't want that, probably because there was shady stuff about pay for play, which now there's an investigation into Hillary's, the Clinton Foundation. So maybe we'll get to the bottom of that eventually. But that's what it was about, in my opinion. Anyways, so yes, at the top level, there were two different crimes that were being looked at. But the crimes that are being charged at the bottom were the same on both sides, right? So, for example, we know with Flynn, okay, lied to the FBI. And people will say, yeah, that's a serious crime. That should be charged. Okay. Well, we know for a fact that multiple people connected to Hillary, in fact, probably Hillary herself, lied to the FBI. For example, there are articles you could look up. I've done videos on this. You could check the recent videos. Let me see my... and I'll get, someone just texted me a question. I'll get to that. But we know for a fact that we have people on Hillary's side that lied. For example, Peter Strzok, who was the Trump-hating, Trump supporter-smelling agent that was in charge of all these investigations, he investigated Flynn, interviewed Flynn, he interviewed Mills, Abedin, Hillary, etc. He comes away, his 302s we can see show that both Mills and Abedin, who were close confidants of Hillary, said that they had no knowledge of Hillary's server until after her tenure as Secretary of State, which was, I believe, 2013. However, we could clearly see, based on emails that have been released to the public, that as early as 2009, Mills and Abedin are both involved in email discussions with other people discussing Hillary's server. There was a 2009, 2010, and a 2011 email chain. This was from, I don't have the act. One of the things I'm working on with my videos is it's hard for me to do a video and record, and if I don't have another person behind me, can't pull up articles and stuff. But it's on my video I did on previous video I did that talks about how the Flynn plea proves that people know that the FBI investigation to Hillary's been. I think I linked it there. But anyways, it shows that we know from these emails that they're talking about these servers. So in other words, that's blatantly the FBI knew. They had access to these emails, so they knew in the emails before the interviews with these people that they were saying, yeah, we know about Hillary's server in 2009, 10, 11. And then when they ask them, did you know about the server? They say, no, we didn't know about it until afterwards. That's a lie to the FBI. Now, my stance on it is, I don't care if you think I don't know enough to know, is that such a big deal that we should charge these type of lies, or should we let them go? I don't know. I'm sure that there could be compelling arguments made either way. My gut feeling is if someone lies to the FBI, charge them. But okay, fair enough. It could go either way. All I'm asking for is consistency, though. So if you're able to charge Flynn because you're looking at some higher crime with lying to the FBI, why do Mills and Abedin instead get immunity and they don't get charged and threatened? And then lo and behold, as a result of that immunity, do they then, by getting this immunity, testify to higher crimes that were committed? No. No crimes are ever charged. You don't just give immunity out and then end up never getting any crimes charged. That's not how it works. The way it works is you give someone immunity because you're like, look, we're going to find crimes you committed. So you better be able to, one, you better tell the truth or we're going to reject this immunity. And second, if you better be able to provide the goods on some other crime that committed or it's not worth giving immunity. No law enforcement agency is just out there saying, okay, we're going to look at all potential suspects, give them all immunity, and then ask if they want to turn on each other. Who cares if they do at that point? They all have immunity. So yeah, now it's funny because you hear people that are Hillary supporters saying, oh, Hillary is clean. How many investigations must we have? Everyone shows that there were no crimes committed. Well, yeah, because everyone got immunity. In addition, there were other articles that I could link. Maybe after this live video, I'll go back and link them. But trust me, I have a trustworthy face, right? But I think it was from the USA Today that showed interviews that FBI agents, their texts that got released that the public's now been able to see of these FBI agents' texts. And one exchange was we don't get to see the FBI agent's name, but we see one agent talking to another saying, hey, did you interview that person that was connected to Hillary? It doesn't cite their name. And the FBI agent says something like, yeah, they lied their butt off. And he proceeds to go through the list of lies. First, they said they were never in the house. Then they said they took the garbage out a couple times. Then they said they were on the computer. And then they said they did this. And then they said they did that. And the other person, the first agent says, oh, wouldn't that be funny if that's the only person that gets charged in all of this because they lied? To which the second agent responds like, yeah, who are you kidding? We know no one will be charged. So there's another example of someone connected to Hillary that they knew lied, but instead of saying, okay, you've just lied to the FBI, you're looking at 5 years in a federal penitentiary now, you better cooperate with us, they just said, oh well, that lie's not that important. But if that's a Trump-connected person that lies, like, let's say about, like, Cohen lied, quote, because he said that he stopped talking about the Trump deal in Russia in January of 2016, when actually it was June of 2016. That's a far less impactful lie than the lies we're talking about Hillary people lying about, like lying about knowing about the server. That's not just, that's, you see what I mean? Like, it's far less impactful. And so we see that constantly. In fact, that same USA Today article says that these FBI agents said that it defied credulity that Hillary Clinton could say she thought the C's on the top of documents meant alphabetical order instead of classified. In other words, she lied to the FBI. So they knew this, but instead everyone gets immunity. And then, of course, the biggest crime that was committed that we know immunity was given for was the FBI subpoenaed evidence, and then after that subpoena was issued, people connected to Hillary destroyed that evidence that was subpoenaed. Yet the guy who did that, Paul Combetta, who on a Reddit thread went by the name of Stone Tier and said that a, quote, very VIP told him to take the names, certain names off an email chain. In other words, someone way above him told him that he needed to get a very important person's name off email chains, Hillary's name in other words, because they didn't want this going. He asked how to do that in Reddit, couldn't find an answer, so he bleach-bitted everything and destroyed all that subpoenaed evidence. Like with a cloth, right, Hillary? Yet that person's given immunity and not charged. How isn't that at least charged? So it's clear. Now, my concern, now you might be listening to this going, of course, Rob doesn't like Hillary and he likes Trump more, so it would be easy for him to say that. I'm not even suggesting going back and recharging Hillary people with the crimes. I don't really, like, I say this over and over, I don't really care about Trump or Hillary. Like, okay, I care in the sense of this. If they committed crimes, they should be held accountable. But to me, that is far less important than the idea that we may have a corrupt and biased intel and investigative agencies that are working on behalf of people they like and against people they don't like. Because if that's true, we no longer have any semblance of democracy. It's bad enough that the majority of people we vote for don't end up working for their constituents anyways, but now, even the small shred that might happen, it doesn't matter because they're overridden by unelected bureaucrats that will strongly go after anyone they disagree with, like they are Trump. Remember, Schumer told us, why would you go after the intelligence community, Trump? They'll get you 6 ways from Sunday. Schumer told us. That's the lead opposing candidate, or lead opposing political member, Schumer, the Democratic head of the Senate, telling Trump, like, dude, you're making a huge mistake. We all kind of learned we have to toe the line. Right? That's my major concern. And it used to be the major concern of people on the left. I remember my first foray into politics was basically, I graduated high school in 2002. I remember, like, the Iraq War was the first thing that it was like, at first you had this feeling of, like, patriotism, like, yeah, get those jerks, they came after us. But then once I realized I was just a stupid kid and started to look into it, it's like, well, wait a minute. What connection did any of the 9/11 attackers have to Iraq? Where's the evidence? We keep it. Hey, just trust us, the intel agent. Just trust us. There's tons of weapons of mass destruction. Trust us, we got to do this. Trust us, there were connections to bin Laden. They lied to us. We know they do now. The media came out afterwards like, our bad. Yeah, we should have really asked more tough questions, but instead of just believing in the intel agencies. Now fast forward, 12 years, and they're telling us, not only will they not question these intel agencies when they're doing stuff like this. Oh, and what do the intel agencies want? More conflict with Russia. More wars in Syria. More wars in Yemen. The same thing they've always wanted, right? We're told not only can we not, or not only will the journalists not question that, but in fact, you're un-American and you're hurting the country if you are questioning that. That's what they tell us. So our journalists that constantly tell us, oh, we're so important. Trump came after us. Trump attacked us. We're America's last line of defense. Like, we're so the American people could learn about stuff. They're telling Americans, by the way, don't ask questions about the intel community. We won't either. And if you do ask, you're un-American. That's the crap we're letting. So I don't care. Look, Trump and Hillary at best would only have been president 8 years. So yeah, if they committed crimes, it is serious. And I still stand by, despite all of this, and despite the fact that I think that the Mueller investigation is a witch hunt, and I think there's a huge double standard. If there comes out that prove that Trump colluded with Russia to steal the election, not only should he be impeached, he should be held criminally responsible, and that's treason, as far as I'm concerned. I just haven't seen any proof of that. Instead, I'm seeing his lawyer being raided for tax charges 9 years ago, things like that. That was never the original intent of the investigation. So that's my feeling on that. That's why the people that know, that are like, see, Flynn, this Flynn document, that proves he was cooperating. That's a good thing. That proves that Trump or higher people might be in trouble. Those people know deep down, oh, and what the FBI did, giving everyone immunity when they knew there were crimes committed, and then at the end of the day coming up empty-handed with not one crime charge. They know deep down that that was corrupt, that that was garbage. But they don't care. Or they just, maybe it's not even that they don't care, it's that they're willing to say, whatever, that's a problem we could deal with later. Trump's a bad guy, so let's just worry about that. And my feeling is that that corrupt intel agency is, look, the idea of having an intel agency that can be used as a political weapon is far more dangerous than anything a political candidate could ever do with Putin. Because the FBI is stronger, has more access and more influence in the United States, as does the CIA, the NSA, all these other intelligence agencies, than Putin and the GRU ever would. And so that's why, to me, it's that's a bigger focus. Now, someone asked me a question here via phone. What about, like, Ivanka and her use of private servers and things like that? I'll go beyond that. Like, Comey also supposedly was using private emails to do government business. In fact, I'm guessing, let's just say, because I am Republican, right? I'll bet you, let's leave the Democrats out of it for now. I'll bet anywhere from 25 to 50%, maybe even more, of all people involved in the government that are Republican use private emails and things like that for government business. And it is a danger. Now, we know, we're constantly told about how hacking's such an important danger. It's clear to see. Supposedly the RNC was hacked during the midterms, now we're seeing. It's just a fact. Look, it's been proven that the United States hacked our allies. We hacked, like, Merkel. So it's not just our enemies, it's our ally. Everyone is trying to get everyone's private information from everyone else. That includes our country. That includes private businesses. I'm sure there's all, like, you think that Facebook and Google, they're not trying to get information that could later benefit them? Of course they are. So yeah, it's a big deal when people are using these private emails for government work. And there should be people held accountable. But what are you going to do? Arrest everyone? Now, let's not kid ourselves. That's still not as bad as having a private server at home. But I'm not one of these lock her up people that were like, oh, this private server was such an egregious, look, a lot of that is just hypocritical nonsense. A lot of that is people on the right. It's the same people on the right that are like, special counsels are the worst thing ever, that were totally cheering the special counsel into Bill Clinton. Now, when Bill Clinton was going through his business, I happened to be like 12, 13 years old. So I'm not going to lie and pretend I was that kind of kid. At that point, I'm sure my interests were, I thought I was going to be an NFL player, and I was a really badass Mario Kart player. So I don't think I was looking into that investigation. But in retrospect, yeah, it was total garbage. There should have never been a special counsel. It should have been handled by the DOJ. And I think that you see what happens with the special counsel is you basically say, there's a criminal, now find the crime. And they don't have anyone to answer to, and it expands limitlessly. So the original investigation into Bill Clinton didn't find what they were looking for, so they got him about lying about consensual sex. I don't care. JFK, I don't care at all. I don't care that Trump had sex with a porn star, supposedly. I don't care. Now, if it's different if it wasn't consensual. Like, there are allegations that Bill Clinton raped people. There have been people that allege Trump's done unconsensual. That's different. Like, that's something to be concerned with. But consensual sex, I don't care at all. And that's what the impeachment over Bill Clinton was, lying about consensual sex. So what, to save his marriage, to not be embarrassed? I really don't care. I thought it was stupid. It was a waste of resource. And the same Republicans that cheered that on now, a lot of them are saying, like, oh, this is terrible what's happening to Trump. Yeah, it is terrible, but it was bad when it happened to Bill Clinton as well. So when it comes to the server thing, with the private email thing, like you see the Trump people doing it, or Republicans in general, yeah, like, they're hypocritical, especially if they criticize Hillary. But still, it's not the same as having the server. The server, that is uniquely worse, right? And I haven't seen, though I could be wrong, that classified information was put over, like, Ivanka's private email. I haven't seen that, where we know that was the case with Hillary's server. So there are differences. But in general, you're right that there is a lot of hypocrisy that goes on with it. But again, I'm not one that was necessarily saying Hillary, like, lock her up over this server business. I thought she should have been admonished. I thought that we should be honest about whether or not it's a crime or not. I think that it could have been like, yeah, you're guilty of this, but the penalty is just, like, not jail time or anything. And personally, I didn't like Hillary. I wasn't going to vote for Hillary, right? But I honestly don't think that was a reason not to vote for her. I don't think that would have been enough for me. Oh, she used a private server. Well, that's it. That's a deal breaker. No, I don't think so. That's not how I look at it. Again, my interest in the story isn't, oh, Hillary should go down. People connected. Mills and Abedin lied. They should go down. If they broke the law, they should. Sure, the law, or we should change the laws. The same with Ivanka. Any of them. I don't care. If that's the law and they broke it, it should be enforced. But the bigger story to me is the people that do the enforcing, the intelligence agencies and the investigative agencies, picking and choosing to not charge people with stuff when they are connected to them. And then, not charge people with stuff when they think they'll be friendly with them, versus charging people with stuff that they think will be accurate with animosity towards the intelligence and investigative communities. That is an incredible danger, and everyone on the left should be absolutely appalled by it, because we know what happens when we have unchecked intel agencies that are willing to lie. We end up in wars. Innocent people end up dying. Right? I was having a conversation with this is me kind of transitioning. Again, for those of you watching, I promise I didn't just make up that I have an imaginary friend named Aaron Swanlek. He will be here. He is not the best with directions, plus it was snowing a little today, so yeah, he's going to be late. He said about a half hour, which it's been 42 minutes, so he's already behind his, at first behind schedule statement, but we'll get to him. And I have all day. I don't have anything better to do. My wife found out. We knew that Aaron was coming up because we have a Thanksgiving we're going to together tomorrow. So we knew he was coming up tonight. And I told my wife, I was like, hey, guess what? She's at work. I text her and said, guess what? Aaron's going to come up early and he's going to do this video with me. This might be him here. Okay, I'll be going downstairs real quick. And instead of saying, like, that's great, have fun, I hope you guys do really good, she goes, you guys better not be drunk when I get home. So that was her great advice. So he's supposedly downstairs. I'm going to go try to meet him. If it's cool with everyone, I promise I'll be right back, but I'm going to end the live stream just for a couple minutes so he could walk in and, you know, not have to look all disheveled or whatever. So I'll be back in a couple minutes.